Here we have our 2004 S54 swapped 6-speed manual E46 wagon. Now surprisingly, I have not had this question yet, but we're going to answer it today. Should you attempt to do a build like this? Now the answer to this question is yes, especially if this is one of your dream cars. I know that putting the S54 in other BMW models is a very popular thing. One of the best combinations of cars out there, from what people have told me, is an E30 with the S54 in it. You've got the beautiful chassis of the E30, fantastic driving experience. You put that 330 horsepower engine in there and it's absolutely fantastic. Another one that people do is the E36 with the S54 swapped. Why? Because over in Europe, they had the E36 with the S54, and over here we had the S52, which only produced 240 horsepower. That's still quite a bit, but not nearly as much as 330. Now we've had some hiccups with ours, mainly a little bit of body damage that we're gonna have to go over and clean up, but primarily this has been pretty cut and dry. You pull stuff out of an M3, you put it into this wagon chassis that we have. The real big thing that I wanna go over is pulling an engine and transmission out of an M3 and working on M3 parts difficult? And the answer is just, it's no. It's just as easy to pull an engine out of a 330, out of a 2.5 liter, as it is to pull the engine out of an S54. There's a few extra things like an oil cooler, but it's really straightforward. A couple screws and everything just comes right out. So do I recommend this? Again, I'm gonna say yes, if you have a few things. One, do you have enough tools to do this project? But I'm going to preference that with a couple things. You need to have enough tools to do this. BMWs don't really take a lot of special tools. I think some of the only ones that I really have that are considered special or unique is a torque bit set, but those are becoming more and more popular as I've noticed. The other thing that we have are e-sockets. Both sets of those I think you can get at a Harbor Freight or something like that, even on sale from Lowe's or Home Depot, for like $20 or $30 for both sets. So it's really not any special tools to do this kind of stuff. On top of those tools that you can put in your toolbox, you're gonna need an engine hoist. We used a combination of my lift and the engine hoist to be able to get the engine out. You can do it on a 2-post lift where you actually just drop the whole entire front subframe out of the car. That would still have a lift or some sort of engine carry dolly that they actually make that you can drop the front end with. Point is, you want to make sure that you have the correct tools. You don't have to have a lift, you don't have to have one like this, you don't have to have a 2-post, but it definitely makes it a lot easier. I did a lot of the work on the M3 where the camera is sitting now off of the lift. There was a lot of parts that were pulled off the M3 shell and then put onto the wagon because I don't have 2 lifts, I just have the one. I think the biggest thing that you're gonna want to make sure you have is a place to do it. Luckily enough, I have quite a large area here and it's heated and cooled, and I don't have to worry about things getting wet, the weather outside stopping me from continuing on with my project. I think the only thing that the weather could do to me is snow my trailer in the backyard and then stop us from moving some of these things around. When we first got the alignment down on this, I had to trailer it over there because it was just so bad. I didn't set it up very well, and so I couldn't drive the car over there. Same thing with the windshield. I actually had the windshield done before the alignment was done, and so I had to trailer it. So you want to make sure you have the tools and the setting appropriate to do a project like this. But when it comes to working on M cars and moving M car parts back and forth, it's really not any more or less difficult than working on a non-M. If you can work on a 330, you can work on an M3. This kind of stuff here is fairly new to me. On my race car, I had some body damage, but it's a race car, so we kind of just did some filling primer and sanded it down a little bit, just make it a little bit more smooth, but I still have body damage on it. Where this car, we don't want to have that. We're going to have to go through and learn how to do that. It's not that difficult, but it's still new to me. So most of the time you probably won't have this, but in case you do, you'd want to make sure that you factor that into your experience needed to do a swap like this. If you know how to move an engine back and forth, but there's a big dent on the side of the car, that can take your difficulty factor up a couple notches, because now you have to do even more. I think the other thing that I wasn't able to do here, besides the windshield and the alignment, was the exhaust. I had to get some welding done on the exhaust. I do not have a welder here quite just yet. We're working on getting one purchased. I just wanted to make sure that I get the one that's going to be able to do everything in my list of wants and needs. So I had to go and get it taken to go and do that. The other thing we had to do was get the tires mounted, the wheels painted, things like that. So I'm not factoring that into the difficulty But what I'm doing is then you have to put that on the cost end. So if you're trying to keep this low budget, you better paint the wheels yourself or know how to powder coat or something like that, because if not, you're gonna pay for it. And where these wheels were really curb rash and the paint was coming off, it was pretty much a needed item. Now, in a different video, I do wanna go over all of the cost that this has done so far. I know the car's not put together, but I have everything here to do it. So I can actually get everyone that's watching how much it's gonna cost and your worst case scenario along with like the best case scenario. So your best case scenario would be like if you just moved everything over and you didn't have to replace anything. You just pulled it out of one car and put it in the other car. That would be as cheap as you can. And then something more realistic is changing bushings and transmission mounts and stuff like that as it comes off the car. So I would rate a project like this on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's say here for reference that replacing the serpentine belt on this car is like a 0.5. So 0.5 out of 10, something that you can go to the store, 30 bucks, pull it up on YouTube, and you can actually watch step by step how to do it. I would put this car probably close to a 7.5 in difficulty, and mostly because of how much labor it takes to do and some of the tools that I used to do this, including the lift. Where some people are going to be doing this completely on the ground outside, that I think would probably raise that a little bit, but where I wasn't doing a lot of cutting, a lot of fabricating, nothing super modified from my end, I would say that this is probably about a 7.5 out of 10. And I hope at some point that everybody watching gets a chance to do something like this, even if it's buying something like our death car and just going through and just screwing around with it because you only paid a couple $100s for it. I hope that everybody gets that opportunity because it's just so gratifying to do these modifications and be able to feel it in the car. The first time this thing started, I was so excited. I couldn't believe that I had the skills and capability to do this. The whole time building this car, I kept second guessing myself. Make sure you have confidence, go in, know what you're doing. And if you need somebody, find a mentor, a cousin, a friend, somebody that knows how to work on cars. I know a lot of local car shops, if they're small, are really cool about giving advice and helping out because they want to be this inviting community to bring people into this modification process. So confidence is key when you're working on something like this. Confidence and knowledge. You want to make sure that you're going into it at 100% so that when it whittles you down, you still have energy left to do it. Because what happens a lot of times, people get into project cars and they end up just sitting forever because they came into it, they didn't really know what they were doing, they were nervous, they didn't have any help, and it'll just break you down. And then you just have no energy or no money to finish it. So if you go into it prepared, get all your finances taken care of, something like this is absolutely possible. If you have any questions that we can answer, as always, you can leave them down in the comment section below. You can also message us on Instagram at Tenza_motorsports. We will always try our best to answer and be as specific as we can without being too complicated. And if the question is too complicated for a phone call or a text message, it's something I can make a video on and explain in more depth so that I can show what exactly the answer should be to your question. So there is definitely a perk to following and messaging us on Instagram. There is also a second perk to following us on Instagram. We do giveaways. So right now we have a super clean giveaway going on. We're gonna be announcing that here in a few weeks. All you have to do to be in any of our giveaways, be part of any of them that we do from now on, all you have to do is follow us on Instagram. That's it, just follow us because we're gonna be pulling winners from the list of our followers. So hopefully today's video was informative and helpful. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new, check out our Patreon, link in the description below. We have a lot more to come on this and we have tons more BMW content to come. We have such a big list, it's actually a little bit overwhelming. So stay tuned, lots more BMW stuff to come. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next video.